Hello everyone and welcome back to our build for Jekyll and Hyde Park. Of course, we're working on the Dr. Jekyll side, so the happy side. I'm sorry that this episode is a day late. I usually do this on Thursdays, of course, but my upload schedule was just a little messed up this week. But here we are, and it's an extra beefy episode, and that's why you'll see, well, you might notice that it's in like a higher speed. We're at 400% right now. I'm giving it my all because obviously I need to have this park finished before we start getting into December and we start getting into the new DLC, right? So Frontier this week, they posted a Know Your Dino on their Twitter, and as far as I'm aware, it's not a dinosaur we currently have in game, and it sounds very similar to the Atrociraptor. I did a full video on that, you can check that out in case you missed it. But yeah, it seems like on the 29th of November, they'll be announcing a new DLC or releasing the trailer for a new DLC. No news yet on when that will then release, but I'm kind of expecting like maybe a week's worth of turnover. If it's a big thing, maybe 2 weeks worth of turnover. So we need to have this all wrapped up by then, and that includes, of course, the absolutely massive double feature tour that we're gonna do for this park. So I really need to get a move on with this park, and yeah, giving you bigger chunks here. So we're working on 1, 2, 3, 4 exhibits in this video, and at the point of like building this, I hadn't decided yet which species I wanted to put in each of the exhibits. Obviously, hindsight 2020, I know now, but I'm gonna keep it a secret from you. But yeah, while building, I didn't actually know, I didn't have a designated species for each exhibit, right? So I felt like, on one hand, it's sort of hampers you in the sense that you can't get very thematic with it, which is very different from the approach we did for the Hyde part of the park. That was very much, okay, this is going to be the species, so then this is kind of going to be the theme of the exhibit. We're not doing that this time around, or I'm not doing that this time around, and it's actually, in a way, a simpler way to build, in my opinion. You just freeform the whole exhibit build, and then when you're done and you look at the shape and you look at the size and just the overall environment that you created, and you let your inspiration just run wild, then you just go into the hatchery and you go shopping for dinosaurs. Like, what would make sense for this exhibit? What would be cool? So right here we have a fairly large exhibit, and we have the zipline going across it. And due to the size and the zipline attraction, which is the main feature of this exhibit, I did want to go for big species. I knew that, but I didn't want to go too big. I'm like the Goldilocks of dinosaur population here. Not too small, not too big. And the reason I didn't want to go too big is because obviously we're again working towards like a finale in the park, right? So things have to get increasingly epic, or at least the final exhibit should be appropriately epic for your final experience in that park. So stuff like Brachiosaurus, I wanted to hold those off until much later in the park because this is the very start of the Jekyll section. But what I did end up deciding is for that exhibit with the zipline, I went with Camarasaurus, so like, you know, a slightly smaller sauropod in combination with my personal favorite dinosaur ever, and that's the Stegosaurus. Because, well, it's just my favorite, and any excuse to add Stegosaurus is a good excuse, in my opinion. So I'm adding like this little guest section over here, and I went back and forth on this quite a bit. I wanted to make it like a little lake, but as you saw, I couldn't make that fit. The terrain tools were just not cooperating, and then the little shop wouldn't fit, so yeah, I basically had to start almost all over. Maybe there's like a wise lesson to be learned in that. Don't get too hung up on what you've already done. Don't be afraid to use that delete tool and just start over and do what works well with the space and what the game actually allows you to do. I also want to address, I guess, maybe clarify that not all dinosaurs on this side of the park are going to be herbivores. Obviously, on the Hyde side of the park, it just felt more appropriate to go with the carnivorous dinosaurs because those are the scariest in hindsight, and that is something that I just thought of while shopping around for dinosaurs for this happy section. In hindsight, I should have had an exhibit with ceratopsians as well, and like if you light that in a spooky way, I think that could be intimidating as well, you know, kind of like the rhinoceros. Rhinoceros are a very dangerous species. Hippos are like the most dangerous, but like that's a little less as a metaphor for ceratopsians. We're talking about horns. So yeah, in hindsight, I kind of regret that I didn't leave an exhibit for ceratopsians on the Hyde side of the park because that would have been a scary herbivore to add over there. But now that we're on the happy side, that doesn't mean it's just going to be herbivores. Because, you know, basically this is just a normal Jurassic World, right? Just a pretty and professional and well-maintained, successful Jurassic World. So that's going to include some carnivores, but the experience of the carnivores is going to be very different from the experience on the other side. On the other side, it was a lot of, oh heck, there's a hole in this fence, or wait, is there even a fence here? And on this side of the park, when there is a carnivore, the point is that the guests can feel safe observing it, right? So as long as we use the viewing attractions and concrete walls and stuff like that, I feel like it should be perfectly okay to still use carnivores, because obviously I didn't get to use some on the spooky side of the park that I still want to include. For example, I want to include the T-Rex, and what I'll be including in this episode is the Pyroraptor, which I felt like, even though it has a creepy face, I will say that, you know, it's feathery, it's colorful, it's beautiful, it's magical, so I wanted to have that on this side of the park, so that's what is also going to be included in this episode. And that's just something for you guys to keep in mind when you, like, you know, give dinosaur suggestions. Feel free to also suggest the carnivores. And speaking of the dinosaur suggestions, I asked you guys in the previous episode, was it the previous, maybe the one before, I asked you guys to make some suggestions for some exhibits that I left empty the last time around. And a lot of people suggested Minmi, so those are into the park. And a lot of people suggested different kinds of ceratopsians, which is why I realized, oh dang it, I should have used those in the scary part as well. But yeah, a lot of people suggested ceratopsians, so there's another exhibit where I put Sinoceratops and Pachyrhinosaurus, because I feel like they're very cute looking ceratopsians, right? They're super adorable, I think. They have cute faces, so they worked out very, very well. And I totally welcome you guys to give more dinosaur suggestions for this park as well. Even in this building episode, I left an exhibit empty, and I'll point it out when we get to it. So you guys can look at the exhibit, see what we have to work with, and then again in a comment leave a dinosaur suggestion. But for this exhibit that we're working on right now, with the hotels and a little lake right there, this is where I'm going to put a really large herd of Titan, which I think is the perfect dinosaur for this section. They're just so pretty and colorful and just... They just look really wonderful, I think. So those are gonna go in there. And yeah, there's a smaller exhibit that I'm gonna need you guys' input for, and of course for future episodes as well. Now, what we're doing to really distinguish the two sides from one another is in the trees. So we use ginkgo trees instead of the biosyn trees. In the rock colors, I'm only using the desert rocks, the pink rocks, and of course to match with that, I'm also only using the, well, not only, but predominantly using the pink fancy path. To really give it this entirely different atmosphere and really set the two sides apart, which I think works very well. And it's just always interesting to me. You know, it's no secret that Jurassic World Evolution 2, even though it massively improves on the first game, like massively, it's still limiting in many ways, right? Especially when you compare it to something like Planet Zoo or Prehistoric Kingdom. But it still really amazes and amuses me that with the limited tools we have available, you can really achieve a lot. And I feel like that's definitely something that's happening in this park right now. Now that we're working on the happy side and we're a little bit further into it, I think about a third of the happy side is done at the end of this episode. You can really see when you zoom out the immense different feel that the two sides of the park has. And that just really illustrates that even with limited tools, you can create something absolutely awesome. And that's something I love about this game. Like the creative challenge of that, of giving you limited tools, and then, you know, trusting the process, and in the end it comes out really, really beautiful, I think, and different. You can really make some different stuff, which I hope at least that's something you're gonna take away from this build and from my other projects as well, that you really can get a lot out of this game, even though it doesn't have all of the tools necessarily that we would have wanted in our wildest dreams. I think it does a really good job of giving us the basics that we can then use for our own creations. It's kind of like people have made this comparison before, like back when I started with Jurassic World Evolution 1. Jurassic World Evolution and, you know, its successor, Jurassic World Evolution 2, it's kind of like an art kit with only the primary colors. We're only getting red, yellow, and blue, but you can still make awesome things with that. Whereas a game like Prehistoric Kingdom and Planet Zoo, they like give you more than the whole rainbow. They give you every single color known to man, and then it's like, okay, create something with that. And honestly, just give me the primary colors, man. I like it. I like how this is turning out. I like how the limitations is challenging, and also, in a weird way, I guess maybe not easier, but less overwhelming. But that's I went off on a really long tangent there, and I completely forgot how we got here. But I guess, in summary, hey, I like this game, in case you hadn't noticed. I am really curious, though, and this should be an interesting discussion to start in the comments as well. What are we going to get, not just in the DLC that's coming up, because, you know, we feel... let's be honest. We're pretty convinced it's going to be a Malta/Black Market DLC, right? And whether that's going to just be a dinosaur pack or include story as well, that's the direction it's going in, with the sound clip that seems to suggest very strongly that it's a Raptor coming in that DLC. So, you know, that's sort of pigeonholed in terms of what it's going to be. What's more interesting to think about and to consider is what is that free update going to include? Because the free updates have been really, really strong. Almost every single time I've been more excited and more pleased with the free update than with the paid content that they're releasing. So, expectations are high for that, and I'm really curious what they're gonna do with that. Of course, I did a video about that, about what I would want that free update to include. But yeah, give me your thoughts in a comment down below. What do you think the free update's gonna have? What do you hope the free update's gonna have? I'm also really hoping that some bugs are going to get fixed. I'm increasingly seeing comments from people who play the game on, I believe it's Xbox, who have trouble playing the game at all. Like, the game just crashes and even shuts off the Xbox. Obviously, that's something that needs to be addressed. But even if your game is working, one of the really annoying bugs that we have currently, something that really irks me at least, is the jittering that the dinosaurs do when they perform their social animation. Because the dinosaur behavior is one of the strong selling points of this second version of Jurassic World Evolution, right? The first game was really lacking in that regard, especially upon launch. So for Jurassic World Evolution 2, it was very much, oh, they behave more like real animals. And I've just fallen in love with that whole aspect of it. The dinosaurs are just so cute. Like, even the biggest, scariest theropod is so cute when it does its social interactions. So they're just really lovely to watch. But there's no joy to be found in it this time around, because it's all jittery and weird, and it's like, I don't know, like some sort of horror movie kind of situation. So yeah, I really hope that that's something that's gonna get fixed. But beyond that, yeah, I'm really curious about what that free update is going to include. And I've rambled on so long that I totally forgot to point out that little exhibit that I need you guys' suggestions for. Hopefully I will remember to edit it in, so at least you saw it on screen. But it's that little exhibit, like at the bottom right now, right there. That's a little exhibit that I need dinosaur suggestions for. Initially, that's where I put the Pyroraptor, so I actually flew them in there. But then I completely changed my mind and I put the Pyroraptor in the Aviary. Just because I feel like Pyroraptor looks like a dinosaur that can climb fences, so I felt like an aviary would be much more secure than that little exhibit that I built over there. So I still need dinosaur suggestions for that little exhibit, and I would welcome those. Now I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I put a mound, like, yeah, let's call it a mound. It's not a mountain, it's a mound right here in this part of the park. I might extend it a little bit, but I just wanted to put that in just to make sure that I wouldn't forget next time, because one of the things I always say is that differences in elevation is really important for your park. And obviously we went down in the Hyde part, so we're gonna go up in the Jekyll part. But this is an overview of what the happy side looks like so far, and I think it turned out really, really well. Obviously we're only a third of the way through, but I really like how it's starting out. It looks like a normal zoo to me, you know, with the flowing path and stuff like that, no big path art situations. I will bring back the path art at some point, but for now, this is just really the aesthetic that I've latched onto, that I really enjoy. Here we have the Oloro Titan exhibit, and they're getting spooked by the helicopters flying out the Pyroraptors. Unfortunately, I had to sell them because I couldn't place them in the aviary, so I had to sell the ones I already made and create new ones to put in the aviary. And then over here we have the zipline exhibit with Camarasaurus and Stegosaurus in the background as well. Now the zipline is, for me at least, it will be a scary thing to ride that zipline, especially since there's no safety harness whatsoever, like not even the slightest hint of a seatbelt. But you know, it's my new favorite toy. So I couldn't not use it in this side of the park as well. But I feel like with how it's used, it's more magical than scary. You know, it's not the scary zipline that we have over the swamp in the other side of the park. So I like how that turned out. And it takes you over to this little guest section right there, so you don't have to walk that way, at least. And what I think is really cool is the view that this viewing gallery gives of the zipline. You can just imagine like guests flying overhead. That's gonna be hilarious. Okay, so yeah, this little exhibit right here, give me a suggestion for that. Leave a comment down below. What should I put in there? Because the Pyroraptor are in the aviary. As you can see, the aviary still needs to be decorated. That's going to be something for the next episode. And I really want the next episode to be the final building episode. That was kind of the plan for this one. But yeah, my week got a little bit messed up with some editing issues that cost me an entire day's worth of work. Rip. So I'm a little bit behind, so that's why I couldn't finish the park in this episode. So next one should be the final building episode, and then the 2 tour videos after that, which I hope you will join and I hope will inspire you. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, I'm excited for that DLC.